doing that Troggoth there and the Molog that I'm doing at the moment has given me a hankering to make more Troggoth stroke trolls, or at least paint them. And an easy solution to that are these three, which actually they belong to my son. I built them for him about 10 years ago, and yeah, and they're just sitting in a box because he's off at uni, and I'm, as I say, got a hankering for more troll action. So what I'm going to do is just tweak these slightly, because then I can keep my hand in. Now, as I say, I made these about 10 years ago or thereabouts, and it was a real rush job. We were trying to get a orc and goblin army together for my son. So, you know, I was rushing through them all, and they're all right. The paint jobs are all right, but I'd like to just do more. One of the things doing this is giving me an opportunity to change the bases to round bases. So that's one thing I've got to do. If we take each one as we go. This fella, I quite like his paint job, this, like, you know, yellowy colour. So I'm going to keep that. I'm going to redo the seaweed to try and make it look more like seaweed. On all three of them, I'm losing the glossiness. I painted them gloss because I figure, hey, they're water trolls, therefore they've got to be wet, therefore they've got to be shiny. And it didn't quite work. So, as I say, keeping his base colour, I think the first thing I've got to do after putting him on a new base is put some matte varnish over him and then go in with more colours. I've got to fix his little, you know, dangly light thing there, which has snapped from when my son was taking him off to our local Games Workshop store. So I think he's going to be the least of the paint jobs or done paint jobs, because I quite like that colour, and he is my favourite of the trolls. This fella, I'm umming and ahhing about the colour. I might keep it and just add to it. I've got to sort that out there. Look, that seam line right the way down the middle. All right, got to get rid of that. And we've got seam line up there as well. As I say, I was making these in a real rush. I didn't have time for filling gaps. I don't know about the green. I'm an R over that. I'm keeping the vomit. The vomit I'm still pleased with. There we go. So I'm keeping that, but unsure just how much I'm going to change on that one. The one that I'm changing the most is this one. All three I wanted to give their own distinct colour schemes, and I just don't like this colour scheme. I don't think I liked it when I was doing it. So it's going. This one's going to have the most in the way of a repaint. I've got to repaint that fish as well because it's kind of dull. I'm going more, you know, a metallic-y blue or something like that. Seaweed isn't convincing, is it? The only thing I do like about this one is I like his mouth. Try and get a good angle on it. Yeah, I quite like what I did with his mouth and his teeth. So I'm going to keep them the same, but pretty much a repaint on him. So yeah, I think I'll come back once I've prized these off their bases. That's going to be a problem, I think, because it's not the peg type. I've got to somehow prize them off, put them on new bases, maybe put a base coat on some of them, and I'll come back at that stage. It's atrocious weather this morning. The light's terrible, so I'm having to show these fellas off with artificial light, so not exactly accurate colours, but hopefully you'll get the gist. So yeah, I've been having a potter around. This fella, I quite liked his, you know, tanny colour, which was rather different. So I've just kept more with more of the same. I've gone over his belly and underside of his arms and his hands in Vallejo yellow ochre, I think it's called. So that's all I've done there. And of course, that's got rid of that glossiness that I regretted doing. So that's rather good. I've got a little bit left. Look, you can see just there, a bit that I've missed. That's how glossy he was. and that's what he looks like now. So yeah, Vallejo yellow ochre, dry brushed on, and then mixed a bit of a white into it to just lighten it up. And what I've also done with him is I have decided to go with the scales, these like fish scale things, even though they're quite rudimentary in places. So I've picked his ones out with Elysian green. So I have a two-tone troll there, a TTT. All right, so that's that one. That's my favourite one. Don't know if I've said that before. So there's him. Next one, what I've done with him is I totally repainted him in Elysian green, washed him with Nuln oil, which has darkened him down quite a lot, and I'm in the process of bringing that back up with Elysian green, Nurgling green, just to lighten areas, particularly around his face up, and that other one, the really, really bright, dry one that I've forgotten the name of, begins with an N, I think. Anyway, so he's sort of like in a mid-stage. Like I say, I'm keeping the vomit just as it is in the mouth because I quite like that. Next stage on him, I'll be doing what I've done with Mollog and that Dankhold Troggoth. I'm going to be dry brushing some oranges onto his hands and feet and belly and face. And again, I'll be doing the fish scales, but in a much darker green. I want all three trolls to have their own individual colour scheme. It annoys me where Games Workshop have one colour for absolutely every type of species, you know, just this rigid colour scheme, you know, all these look exactly like this with exactly the same techniques. No, 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 these are fantasy creatures and they're individuals. That's how Citadel started off, and that's how I like it to be. So there you go. Oh yeah, the other thing there is you can see here, I've been experimenting with washes of the two types of green for when I'm done with the scales. There's that Beltane one and Coriella or whatever, and I'm umming and ahhing whether to go lighter or darker on the greens. That all depends on the base coat. So that's him. And then the last one, which is my least favourite, so that's 1, 2, was my least favourite one, because I didn't like the rather horrible green that I'd done him in. So I'm going the opposite way. This one's far more advanced than all the others, in that I can't remember, he might have been Elysian. No, he was Vallejo olive drab, washed in Nuln oil, dry brushed in the olive drab, and then again what I've done before, Nurgling green to lighten it up, and that whatever green beginning with N, that colour there, the real bright colour. And I really wanted to lighten him up, so what I've started off is with a dry orange that I've forgotten the name of, but it's the same thing I did with Mollog and the Dankhold, doing his feet, especially doing his belly, doing his hands, and especially his face. He was just too dark before, so out of all of them, I think this is the one that's going to have the brightest face. That's why there's quite a bit of orange on there already. All right. So yeah, the next step with him is to put on a lighter orange and then go up through the reds. This fella, I'm thinking that area at the front, his nose area, is going to be like a solid red and just reds on it. But I really don't know what to do. If I start putting oranges and reds over this ochre colour, it might be a bit ugh. So I might hold off on that. So we'll see. I'll come back when I've done a little bit more work, but they are looking better. Well, they would look better if the sunlight was better, but no, I'm pleased with how these are going. Mistake, mistake, mistake. So I picked out the scales. With this one, it was a green that's not too dissimilar to the green I'd already done his body and washed him with Beltane green. that's all right, just needs a bit of dry brushing. And I've got something in mind for how to make it look more scaly. So he's not too bad. Happy with him. A lot better than when I first started with him. So he's all right. Not so keen on this one. It's just too dark, far too dark. Again, Beltan green washed over it, but I don't like it. By the way, his belly's nowhere near as red as that. This blooming artificial light again. Yeah, it's more like that down in there. No, I don't like it. It's too emeraldy green, and it doesn't look like something that would have been living down in a swamp. Too much like tropical fish, I think, than a river troll or a Fellwater Troggoth or whatever you want to call them these days. So I think I'm going to have to dry brush the base colour over it and take that back quite a bit. All right. Quite happy with his nose though. He's the one who's been on the ale the most out of these three. And then the big mistake is my favourite one. It's too much of a contrast. That green is too much of a contrast. I don't like it at all. I'm going to dry brush him and get him more back to the tans and the ochres of what he is already. All right, so rethink time and I'll come back. Changing my mind a few times since last recordings, but we're on track now, nearly done. So this guy's still the darkest. I've put some of that Necron compound to represent scales, not too keen on it. I'm going to put a green wash over them. Now I've just started picking out his boils and stuff, base coated the fish, done his nails and claws, got to do his eyes, and then I've got to figure out how to make convincing seaweed, because last time that wasn't at all convincing, and what to do with all this hair stuff that he's got growing all over him. Green hair, brown hair, I don't know. This fella also is nearly done. I've put some like a wash of violet around his eyelids just to break the colours up a little bit more. So he's nearly done, just picking out details. And the biggest change was this one. I didn't like what was going on with the scales on the back, so I base coated him in his original colour, and I'm just putting, like, you know, Agrac's earth shade on it. And again, seaweed, what the heck do I do? Do I go bright? Do I go dark? What? All right, so I think next time I come back, everything will be done and the bases will be finished, and they'll be finished. I think this will be the last video before the final version. Again, light is dreadful today, but I'm almost there. You can't really make that out, can you? It looks like it's sunset, and it's not. It's 2 in the afternoon. But I've done the weeds. I'm just picking out the last few things, glossing things. I've put scattered material on the base, so I've got to paint that. Right, so that's him. As I keep saying, he's my favourite. That's my second favourite. All the same, just got to finish off a few things here and there. Paint the base. And then my least favourite. Come on. There we go. He's nearly done as well. Just got to finish that goldfish off. I decided to do him gold just so there's a bit more colour in there. So we've got the gold of the fish and the red of his nose, and everything else is greens and browns and grey of the base. It's going to be a stony base. Might be putting some mushrooms on them as well. We'll see. All right. So I'll be back when I'm done. And here we go. That's them all done. My least favourite before I started is still my least favourite, and I don't know why. I like the fish. I like his jaw. I don't know, there's just something about it. It just doesn't feel right to me. So there he is. That's him done. All right. And then second favourite. all finished. These are great fun to do. I've got to get some more trolls stroke Troggoths for years and years and years. And if you look on my YouTube channel, you'll see that I've done an awful lot of Nurgle Games Workshop figures. But I don't know, I'm just finding them a bit now. And I like injecting a bit of colour and a bit of fun into things. Speaking of which, here we are. Still my favourite. Was my favourite back then. Still my favourite now. There he is. And what I've done is the other two have got, you know, they've got vomit coming down and they've got a fish in their hands. This one with his arms up, the base looked a bit bare. So there's the mushrooms. I've decided to put them on this rather than my Loon Boss. And there we go. Put them away and ready for the next edition, which hopefully will be along soon.